After graduating from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, Dan began his career as a federal law enforcement officer, leading at-sea boardings around the world and commanding an 87 coastal patrol boat. Please help me welcome Dan Holland.
Are we building Skynet? You know, and I'm not kidding there. Are we really building Skynet in the name of national defense and security? Some say that it's inevitable. We're on a march to AI controlling some aspects of our lives that we're not inherently comfortable with, but we're doing it. You know, we've digitized the way that we live, the way that we work, the way that we educate our kids, the way that we perform patient care in hospitals, and it's continuing to accelerate in ways that we didn't predict. Even the people that are building these tools didn't predict. And then finally, the fourth step is to monitor risk. Continuous monitoring is something that a lot of organizations struggle with because it's expensive and it takes time and it's painful to go through these compliance audits, these assessments for the folks that want to be focused on their day job. But it is an important thing to provide the governing body and the senior management with information and security assurance. And so think of this as an infinite game, one that we're not trying to win like a finite game, like a football game that we know it's going to be over in 4 quarters and whoever has the most points at the end wins. This is an infinite game, and the goal is to stay in the game, right? Organizations only lose infinite games when they run out of resources and the will to keep playing. Unfortunately, that's been the state of our national security, our national footprint in foreign wars recently. You know, we've ended up in quite a few quagmires. And we don't want to end up in a quagmire when it comes to AI and technology. So with that, I'll give back some time and be available for questions at the end. But again, those 4 steps, you know, really starts with governance. So if you're responsible for the organization, if you're accountable for the outcomes, make sure that you document your intent and what is and is not acceptable to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So thanks again, Dan. We'll have some questions later. Rising interest rates, inflation, and a rebounding stock market were among the big business stories of 2023. But whatever happened with this recession that everyone was predicting? I'm hoping our next speaker will tell us. Please welcome Dr. Eugenio Aleman.
You know, we are still saying that we will have a recession, very, very mild. You will not even notice it, especially in this region, which is still booming. But we do have a recession, and it is predicated in the fact that the Fed is not going to lower interest rates early. So I know the markets were crazy at the end of last year, saying that the Fed was going to decrease interest rates like 6 times this year. We only have 4 times for the Fed to lower interest rates this year. It will start in June of this year. Still, overall, the economy is going to post a 1% growth rate, which basically matches the growth rate of the population. So assuming that income is distributed equally amongst Americans, which is not the case, nobody will feel the recession. Because income is not distributed equally, then some will feel the recession, some will not, but growth will be at 1%, next year 1.8%, and it's a very good friend of mine says when I explain something to him, he says, Eugenio, thank you very much for your explanation. I'm still confused, but at a high end.
But I'm honored and pleased to bring back an old friend to the Focus on 2020 Focus Tech. Every year we've been doing these, and you've been here every other year as a guest. Please welcome back to our stage, Florida's most quoted political scientist, Dr. Susan MacManus.
What I want to start with is a series of slides showing you how deeply people are disgusted with what's going on in this country and some of the reasons why, and then I'll end with a little bit of a look at Florida specifically. This has been a constant for quite some time, almost 2/3. Just say the country's headed in the wrong direction. You don't get that with just one party. This is across all parties and so forth. And they did some really good research by Pew Research Center asking people how they felt about politics. And obviously, the most common responses were exhausted and angry. The least common were hopeful and excited. So, overall though, what are the biggest unpredictables that we have, not just in Florida, but across the country with this election year? The economy, candidate status. Everyone is wondering, will one of the two not make it to the finish line in terms of getting the nomination? Something can happen, we don't know. The independent minority party candidates, how much are they going to get into and eat into the other party's votes? Any international event, any kind of actual involvement of the U.S. physically, I think would really change this election's direction in a heartbeat. Extensive misinformation and disinformation, voting-related violence, and of course litigation. We're already calling this, what's going on right now, lawfare instead of warfare. It's become a vernacular in this election cycle. So I'll end with this. I call this the litigation and misinformation election, and my prediction is stormy. Thank you.
So without further ado, I'd like to call up here Nick Patel from Flagship Bank, our retirement for the year. So we have a timepiece because you were able to futurize your predictions, and it reads, the first step toward creating an improved future is developing the ability to envision it. Congratulations, Nick. Come up, Eric. What's your predictions for 2024?
Well, it's putting me on the spot. I guess it's a good thing that a banker won this. But
First time.
in the interest of time, and based on today's topics, I'm going to give you two pieces of advice. Because we're looking at consumer spending as an indicator of the economy. So just watch the number of times the Amazon truck goes by your house. If it slows down, we're in a recession. Number two, just ask Google or Siri. We're good.